Test, test. Commissioner Barber?
Yeah, can you hear me and see me?
Yep, all good. Thank you.
Okay. I
Yep.
had to actually bring a tie with me.
Okay, welcome to the Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for November 2024. First item is to approve the minutes of our meeting of November 6, 2024. Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Morning, Mr. Chair. There's 5 items on today's consent agenda. First item is a request from Canaan Solar Energy Center LLC, Canaan Solar Center 2 LLC, and Canning Solar Center 3 LLC for a regulatory waiver. Item number 2 consists of revised tariff pages from Securus Technologies LLC. Item number 3 is an application from Stratus Networks Inc. for authority to provide telecommunication services. Item number 4 is a request from Croda Inc. for certification as a renewable energy facility. And finally, item number 5 is an application from Blue and Silver Energy Consulting LLC DBA ProStar Energy Services for a license to supply natural gas.
Okay, regarding item 1, I move we grant the waiver of the operational deadline for the Canning Solar projects until December 31st, 2026. Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 2, I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing, inclusive of the revisions in mail log number 313450, filed on November 7th, 2024, with an effective date of November 19th, 2024. Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Regarding item 3, I move we grant the company the requested operating authority and grant the requested COMAR waivers. Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 4, I move we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number. Direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification and file an on-site and behind-the-meter generation report with the Commission within 1 week of each recording of generation data with GATS, and direct the company to notify the Commission within 30 days of if the information on which the application was filed has changed. Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Regarding item 5, I move we grant the company a license to operate as a natural gas supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and services applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to notify the Commission within 30 days of any changes in the information in the application. Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, actually. So, before we move on to the rest of the agenda, we actually have 3 new employees that have joined the Public Service Commission. The first is Demetria Hall, who is filling a position as administrative specialist within the transportation division. She has previously worked for Pacific Rehab of Maryland, and we welcome her to the transportation division. We also welcome Odilipo Fadizi as a regulatory economist in our electricity division. He graduated from the University of Maryland College Park with a degree in economics and government, and has been in private consulting before he came to join us. And then finally, we want to welcome Wasia Weldikas, I probably butchered that unfortunately, who's now joining our engineering division as a distribution engineer. He comes to us from the Swedish Royal Institute for Technology and has a bachelor's degree from Asmara University. So we welcome all three of them to the Public Service Commission.
And Mr. Chair, item number 6 on the administrative agenda is a request from the Potomac Edison Company to extend to electric vehicle programs.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Drew McAuliffe on behalf of staff. On October 15th, 2024, Potomac Edison filed a request to extend 2 of its Phase 1 EV pilot programs, the EV-only time of use program and the public charging station program, until the earlier of June 30th, 2025, or the date in which the Commission issues an order on Phase 2 EV programs. On October 11th, 2023, PE received approval from the Commission to continue to enroll customers in the EV-only time of use program until December 31st, 2024. In order number 91297, issued this August 23rd, 2024, the Commission stated that it directed the utilities whose EV-only time of use rates have not ended as of the date of this order shall continue their existing EV-only TOU programs until such time as the Commission issues decisions on their Phase 2 proposals, and that the current end dates for enrollment into those programs shall not change. PE is requesting the Commission reconsider this order and allow PE to enroll customers in its EV-only time of use rate until the earlier of June 30th, 2025, or the date in which the Commission issues an order on Phase 2. Staff agrees with PE that extending the program is in the best interest of PE's customers and the utility. Not allowing new enrollments may cause customer confusion and frustration, which may limit customer interest in similar programs in the future once they are possibly reopened. PE is also requesting to continue to own, operate, and maintain all of its public charging stations, again until the earlier of the decision when Commission makes its Phase 2 ruling, or June 30th, 2025. To date, the Commission has not requested that any utility cease to continue to operate these public charging stations. Therefore, staff recommends the Commission continue to allow PE to continue maintaining and operating their public charging stations. So finally, staff recommends that the Commission approve PE's request to enroll customers in their EV-only time of use rate and continue to own and operate their public EV charging stations until the earlier of June 30th, 2025, or the date in which the Commission issues an order on Phase 2. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
So, any questions for staff?
Yeah.
Oh, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that presentation. I just wanted to find out, have you had a chance to look at the Mr. Hartman's filing? He raises a couple issues, particularly on the questions about the extension of, I guess, ownership of the charging network. Did you have a chance to look at some of the numbers he presented, specifically with the maintenance costs and also with the proposed networking fees? And did you have any comment on that?
Not particularly. Again, the Commission they haven't limited PE's ability. I think they were just, through abundance of caution, wanted to ensure that they can continue to operate these stations. That right has not been taken away yet. So I think it was almost, that request really wasn't even needed at this time. But yeah, obviously questioning the maintenance and just the general upkeep costs of these is something that needs to be continued to be investigated. But I just didn't see that being an issue in this instance, because the Commission did not limit the ability to continue to operate these stations at this point.
Okay, so they didn't seem out of line, at least at this point, something that we should be concerned about. And of course, I would ask the company as well if they could comment on Mr. Hartman's filing. But
Sure. Personally, I don't think so. Obviously, this is still kind of a new technology and a new area of expertise for the utilities, so they're still working through the kind of the hiccups there. But we didn't see any major area of concern. No.
Okay, and then in the filing by the company, they did provide a, with I guess their budget that they have. Did you have any concerns about where the funds might come from? Because in some areas they in fact were, I guess over budget, particularly in those areas that might involve running the charging network.
Sure. So PE did still have budget left over from their phase one. So there won't be any additional funds requested. So staff felt comfortable with
Okay.
that. But we have seen the other utilities as well kind of move funds from one area to the other, and staff really doesn't see issues with that. Again, this was when these things were first proposed 6 years ago. Now it was hard for the utilities to tell where exactly the funds were going to go, and I think they've kind of gained some learnings over the years about which programs are more expensive and which ones are not.
Of course. Okay. Well, I just want to find out if you had a chance to look at that budget, because again, some of the money that they do have in surplus seems to be in the multi-unit dwellings, and so I would be
Right.
concerned about where the funds might be transferred from.
Sure. Well, and as you're well aware, it's just the uptake of the multi-unit family programs has been, minimal at best, and unfortunately, it's just been a hard area to get customers interested in the programs.
Okay. And then finally, just on the Hartman filing, he does include an Appendix 8. I'm sorry, A. Did you have a chance to look at that? I mean, are those numbers? Do those look right to you, based on other filings by the company and the information you have?
Sure. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. I'd have to get back to you on that. I did look at it, but I just don't have the numbers in front of me.
Okay. I guess the question I have on that is, it just seems, obviously we know that at this point we don't expect there to be, these to be profitable, but I was somewhat surprised by the low utilization over a 6-month period of some of these sites, particularly, given the cost of just the maintenance contracts and the network fees.
Sure.
So did you have any concerns about those, or anything that popped out as far as again, there was one, I think, over 6 months that appears, if these numbers are correct, there was revenue of 56 cents for I'm sorry, 32 cents at Hagerstown Community College North. And I'm just wondering if we should be probably not acting just today over the bench, but really kind of looking at some of these very low performing sites and I guess cutting our losses at this point. Is that something that staff is looking at?
Sure. Yeah. So as you may recall, this issue was brought up in that phase one kind of final hearing. So staff, frankly, has a bit of sympathy for the utilities in this regard, because they were required to put these stations on public property, and we're also kind of told not to step on the toes of the private marketplace as well. So they didn't exactly put these in the highest utilization areas. So again, I do, and obviously the equity, the distribution of the chargers was also a big concern of the commission at the time. So they also were required to spread the chargers out throughout their distribution system, service territory.
Of course,
So, obviously, if PE put, say, many more chargers in the Frederick area or in Montgomery County, they probably would have higher utilization levels. You can see it with BGE. They have some chargers at BWI that are actually profitable and are used quite frequently. So, I understand the question. Obviously, we would like to see them used more often. But I think there is kind of, there is some responsibility on, all the parties that we did require the utilities to put these chargers in these locations. So it's like I said, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it's.
Yeah, and I certainly agree. For the first phase of the pilot, we did do that. I guess the question is now on us. Do we continue?
Sure.
And at what point would we make that decision? And so you would stand by the staff recommendation that we not necessarily make that decision today, then?
Well,
okay.
So staff did recommend at the end of phase one that no more public charging stations be installed by the utilities, unless they were in mud locations possibly. That was the only exception we gave. But
Okay.
we don't recommend expanding these public charging stations beyond what the utilities are currently allowed.
Okay, and then I guess the last question, you brought it up about we don't want the these facilities, I guess, these charging stations to step on private sector facilities. Hartman, again, in his filing pointed out that some of the Electrify America facilities are actually charging a higher rate than the company, and so even at at some of the company's high utilization facilities, there might be at least an opportunity to, I guess, shave some of the deficit if we were to require, I guess, something more aligned with what the private sector is charging. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure. We'd be happy to review those rates. As you know, those are commission-approved rates,
Right.
and they were approved 5-6 years ago at this point, and we're based on a market analysis. I know PE would adjust theirs periodically through their semi-annual filings, but we'd be happy to have all the utilities, essentially reconduct their studies to see if there needs to be an update. Obviously, 5 years is a long time, and there definitely could be some adjustments in those rates to possibly recoup some of those costs.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. McAuliffe, and I'll probably I will have the same questions for the company to have an opportunity to respond, so thank you.
Okay, I don't see him, so I take it Mr. Hartman is not in the room. I know he's a frequent flyer here. Okay, so
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Garcia. I'm counsel for Potomac Edison. We're appreciative of the time and effort by staff. OPC did reach out to us this week, so we know they reviewed, and Mr. Hartman as well, in reviewing the company's filing. We agree with staff's recommendations, and we would also like to address Mr. Hartman's comments. With me for that this morning is our program manager for our EV program, Angelina Rinaldo, and Mark Zucca, Senior Advisor for Maryland Regulatory Affairs, to answer any questions that the Commission may have about this extension request and to address some of Mr. Hartman's comments.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mark Zucca for Potomac Edison. I'm going to try to go through Mr. Hartman's comments first, and then I'll try to address, Commissioner, your additional questions. But if I miss anything, please let me know. First, I do want to thank Mr. Hartman. He's not here today. The company greatly appreciates a member of the public having an interest like he does in one of our programs. We hear from Lanny often, in a helpful way to let us know when there's issues at the stations or to file comments like this bringing up these concerns. So just want to make sure that we note that. First item on the maintenance budget. So Mr. Hartman mentioned that he believes that it is a high amount for our relatively lower amount of chargers. First, I will note, this is the same amount as was in our previous filing, our previous semi-annual report. We did onboard a new vendor within the last year, Charger Help. We brought them on board to do preventative maintenance, which had not been previously done on our stations. So they're going out and visiting our stations regularly. They have identified to date some issues that otherwise we would have had to wait for a driver to notice and been able to fix those things proactively. So that has provided benefit, but does come at some additional cost. Also just mentioned that because we have a relatively lower amount of chargers than the other utilities, and we have a pretty rural service territory where we include a map in our semi-annual filing, these things are very spread out. There's a lot of drive time to get to them. So the cost per unit, is a little bit higher. On the reliability of stations, Mr. Hartman mentions a specific station at the Rocky Gap Casino and Resort out in Flintstone, Maryland, that has had some reliability concerns over the last few months. We agree with those concerns. We are concerned about that specific charger. We've had multiple issues there. Initially, there was a problem with the power modules within the unit. When we went to go repair them, we actually found that there was wasps that had created a nest inside of the unit, which of course then is a safety issue, and then we need to make sure that's mitigated so the technicians can get in there. And then some further issues, that have compounded on top of that. So not necessarily an excuse, but just an explanation. There are multiple issues there that we continue to work through to get those units back on as soon as possible. Outside of that, the reliability of our stations have been very good compared to a typical, EV charging station that we would see in the state. And we look forward to providing the quarterly reliability reports as soon as we can. We continue to work with the work group on the formatting of those reports to get them out. And when they are released, I think you'll see that the vast majority of PE stations are reporting at or near 100% reliability for the period. On the network fees, Mr. Hartman brought up that the network fees appear to be an annual amount, and he is absolutely correct. So we are asking for a 6-month extension. We pay those fees annually So at the beginning of the year, we will pay a 12-month amount for those network fees for all of our stations. So again, he is correct, that is a 12-month amount, but with the 6 months extension, we would be forced then to pay that whole 12 months there up front. And as Mr. McAuliffe mentioned, we do expect, with the commission's approval, to continue to operate these existing stations, at least obviously through the end of next year. And then on the rates that we charge drivers, so we do have approval within our tariff to charge a range for both level 2 and DC fast chargers. We do update those quarterly based on an analysis that we have of all the rates for charging within the state of Maryland, and can make those adjustments. We are at the high end of that range, so we're talking internally about maybe revamping the way we do that analysis and potentially having to raise that range, which would require a tariff filing. I will note, Mr. Hartman mentions the 56 cents that Electrify America charges, and I think it shows the complexity of this issue. We just charge a flat kilowatt hour fee for our charging. There are no session fees, there are no overstay penalties, there are no time-based charges. Electrify America has a membership where if you pay $7 a month, you get a 25% discount on that 56 cents, bringing it much closer to 40 cents a kilowatt hour. So for a frequent charger, you would use that. There are other charging network operators in our territory that charge per minute fees with a session fee. And again, you have to make some assumptions to try to compare how that compares to a flat kilowatt hour rate. So with that said, we are evaluating it. We do potentially see some room to raise those somewhat in order to recoup some of the electricity fees. But just want to note overall that the intention of these stations wasn't from the beginning for them to be profitable, at least at the beginning. We did not take into account profitability when we sited our stations. We looked to have all of our municipalities, all of our counties represented that were interested in hosting a station, whether they had a lot of drivers registered in their territory or not, with the intention that we would bring them in. A lot of the areas in our territory still do not have a lot of charging that is public charging available for customers, and our network is the backstop for that. And so again, we weren't focused on having each of these stations be profitable. It's allowing access to all customers within our territory to charging. I will note though, in attachment A, we do have some chargers that are starting to approach and reach profitability, especially in the eastern area of our territory, in the Frederick area, where we are seeing those actually bring in more revenue than the electricity bill. I think just on, and then additionally on the public stations, Potomac Edison agrees with staff. We are not looking to expand our network any further. We're looking at maintaining and operating that system effectively so it is that backbone for our customers, and hoping that we, through our programs, can also get that private development to supplement our existing system. But we do want to make sure we continue to operate those reliably.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, actually, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so Commissioner Barbe, go ahead.
Yeah, a few very quick things. If I were in Rocky Gap, are those level 2 and level 3 chargers?
So at the Rocky Gap Resort, Potomac Edison only operates 2 DC fast chargers. There are non-Potomac Edison owned level 2 stations at the Rocky Gap Resort.
Okay, and I presume that these are different companies that are running these different chargers?
Correct. I am not sure who runs the level 2 chargers that are at the resort, but it is not Potomac Edison.
Okay, and I presume that these are all chargers where you have to have access to an app of some sort in order to draw electricity, I assume?
So Potomac Edison's chargers are all on the ChargePoint network, which you can use a ChargePoint account or an RFID card. They do also accept a credit card that has RFID.
So if I were to drive up with my Visa card, I would be able to use that?
As long as the station has network connectivity, yes.
As long as what?
As long as the station has network connectivity.
Okay. And do you know throughout the region what the network connectivity of the various chargers is?
So that is something we report in our semi-annual report. I don't know.
Okay,
We don't have that offhand,
so
but we can get back.
So for me to use my credit card, the charger has to have network connectivity. I assume that if I were to buy gasoline using my credit card, those pumps wouldn't need network connectivity, or would they? I don't know.
They probably are.
It's my understanding that it would be the same concept. It's a credit card point of sale transaction, so I believe it does need the connectivity to make it go through. So some of the advantage of understanding that you would need an account, if you have a ChargePoint account and either a phone that has the app or an RFID card, you will be able to charge even without network connectivity, and it'll store that session on the station itself, and when it gets network connectivity again, it will then kind of send you the bill, if you will.
Okay, I only mention this because during the years that I owned gasoline burning vehicles, I never had an app of any kind. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Richard?
Thank you. Yeah, I think you've answered most of the questions I have. I did want to ask just about, you do have a number of facilities that are really actually doing quite well as far as utilization. However, at least the way we're running the pilot at this point, they also, unfortunately, are the ones that are most in the red as well, because we're not really covering the costs of operating those facilities. So I guess, again, going back to the what the company is trying to do with the various facilities. In one hand, yes, you're operating in areas that are underutilized, are under served, and so they are providing that specific function. However, when you're looking along, the Highway 68 and some of the areas in Frederick, there are a number now of private sector vendors that are moving in. There are a couple that are being developed right now along 68, but I think the company is Flyer J Pilot that will be offering the high rate. So, can you maybe just address that? Is there a way, or is the company looking at how at least some of these facilities that are being utilized, like in Friendsville, and I've had a chance to use some of these myself when I've driven out there, or Rocky Gap, how they might be, I guess, getting a little closer to helping to fund themselves, so then again, they're not just having to be fully incentivized by ratepayers?
Yeah, so especially with the DC fast chargers, and then we've had a lot of discussion at this commission about demand charges. And so, our units they're 62.5 kW individual units. All of them are installed together with another one. It's a paired 125 kW. So I mean, as you would expect, there's a substantial bill, even if you have one driver charge at 125 kilowatts in a month, even if there's not a whole lot of usage. So there's kind of that hump to get over. If we'll note, one of the very last chargers on page 1 of Appendix A from Mr. Hartman's filing, the Max Keen DCFC, that is a charging station. It is at a park in Frederick. It is our most utilized charger, and you can see here that in this period, it is the one charger that with the network fees included, it is showing an operating profit, if you will. Mm-hmm. The maintenance costs are not included in there, so I'm not necessarily saying that this is a hugely profitable charger, but I think it shows you an example of when a charger gets utilized, kind of gets over that initial hump of those demand charges, that it can actually, we can reduce the amount that it's costing the company and potentially even add some in there. The reality is, as you get further along 68, there's a lot of travelers that use that road, a lot of EV drivers where we are one of the very few options at this time. I agree there's a lot of chargers in development that could greatly help there. But still, the utilization is not that great. A lot of those drivers may not be, filling up their entire battery because they're just using it on a trip just to get to, let's say, Morgantown, for example, and they only need a little bit more. Whereas I would expect in an area like Frederick, we may have some drivers that are using that as their main charger, because they may not have access to charging at their house, at their apartment. So I think that we're seeing pretty high utilization, but I think it does show the initial problem we talked about 6 years ago, which is there's not a lot of profitability in these rural areas right now for these chargers, and that's why it's essential for us to have at least that backbone of chargers that are reliable and available for our customers to use to make those long trips.
Okay, well, no, I appreciate those answers. And again, this is a pilot, and so we're trying to get all the learnings we can at this point. But I do have some concerns about a few of these facilities that are being utilized, but are still operating in the red. Even the one at the Max Ken facility, I don't know if I said that correctly. It looks like it's on a ball field or someplace. It still isn't covering all the costs, of the with maintenance, and it's also in an area where a lot of other private sector facilities are now being located. So anyway, I think we're going to have to also be careful that we're not stepping on the private sector. So anyway, I would just encourage utilities as we're getting close to, again, evaluating the next phases of the program to really start thinking about how we can make sure that these aren't, again, a drag, I guess, on our ratepayers, especially at this time when we're increasingly concerned about rising electricity costs. So anyway, thank you for that, and those are all the questions I have.
Thank you.
So regarding the charging stations at Rocky Gap, do you have any idea when they're going to be back online?
So I do not at this time. It is something our teams internally have been discussing. Right now, it is back to the charging manufacturer, ChargePoint, to provide the additional parts in order to get those back online.
Good luck.
But there is charging available because of these other charging stations that you don't own.
There are level 2 charging stations at the resorts, but since we don't run them,
Right,
I
yeah.
can't tell you that they're operating, but I don't
Okay.
know that they're not.
Okay, all right, thanks. With that, I move we approve the company's request to continue to enroll customers in its EV-only time of use rate and continue to operate the public EV charging stations until the earlier of June 30th, 2025, or the date on which the commission issues an order in the Phase 2 proceeding. Commissioner Barbe?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Item number 7 on the administrative meeting agenda is an application from Voltus Inc. for a license to supply electric generation services.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Charles Herbert on behalf of staff. On August 13th, 2024, Voltus Inc., or Voltus, filed an application for a license to operate as a curtailment service provider, or CSP, in the state of Maryland. During staff's review of the instant filing, staff noted the admission by Voltus that the company had operated in Maryland without a license beginning in 2021. Staff notes Voltus's forthcomingness with staff during the application process, as well as Voltus's dialing back of CSP operations in Maryland once the company realized it needed a license to operate. Staff believes that the remedial actions taken by Voltus represent a good faith effort by the company to return to compliance. In addition, staff would note that Voltus has no record of any complaints in any of the jurisdictions where it operates. Accordingly, staff recommends that the Commission grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to the provision of curtailment services. Additionally, staff recommends that the Commission issue a civil penalty to the company in the amount of $1,000. Finally, staff recommends the Commission direct the company to notify the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information upon which the Commission relied in granting this license. And with that, staff is available for any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Richard?
Yeah, just one, and I do agree that it is a serious infraction to operate without a license. I'm just curious to know, how did you come up with the $1,000 number?
Right, so staff maintains a list of previous penalties that were issued to companies for operating without a license, and we compared Voltus's, the severity of their violations in addition to the term that they were operating without a license. What we determined was that Voltus's unlicensed operation is at most as severe as a case, the Northeast Energy case, which was Mail Log 162135, so a while ago. But the Commission ordered that company to pay a civil penalty of $1,000 based on the fact that the case was less egregious than some of the other cases that were cited. In order to make that determination that we were dealing with a arguably less severe case than some of the other past cases, we took into account that Voltus's operation appears to have resulted in some benefits actually to Maryland customers, thanks to the performance of Voltus's portfolio in the PJM Emergency Load Response Program dispatched during Winter Storm Elliott, which the company noted in its response to staff's data request. If that's in fact true, then we see that there was actually if you consider the counterfactual, maybe those customers don't realize those benefits. And so that, if anything, offsets some of what we would normally penalize as far as the civil penalty. So all in all, we felt it's as most severe as this past case where $1,000 was ordered by the commission, and so that's how we came up with this here.
Okay, so it's just the period of time that they operated without the license. That's when you say it's egregious. That's where the egregiousness is.
Well, we look at the period of time as well as any harm to customers
Okay.
that the operations may have caused. But yeah, we consider all of those things.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So are their customers are commercial entities, correct?
Their customers are non-residential only,
Right.
so they would just be C&I.
Okay. So I guess I continue to be mystified as to this situation where companies apparently have been operating and have never bothered to get a license. And, it strikes me as just, I don't know, beyond comprehension why some entity could think that they could set up business in this state without getting some sort of license. It strikes me that almost every single business that's out there needs some sort of license, and particularly in this area. So I guess one of my questions is, is there we don't find this out until they actually show up to get something else, and then it's like, oh, gee, you guys have been operating without a license. Is this something going on? Are there a lot of other companies out there that are doing this and we're not aware of them because they haven't showed up?
Kevin Ozier on behalf of staff. That's certainly a possibility in the case of a broker. It's not really a possibility for a supplier because the supplier would need some sort of an agreement with the utility. It also shouldn't be. It shouldn't be the case with a CSP because PJM doesn't normally let a CSP operate in the PJM market unless they're licensed in Maryland. And that said, I think it's also worth noting, I believe Maryland is the only state in the country that actually does license CSPs. And also, the company would have to be registered with MDAT to operate in the state.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Laura Schweitzer, Director of Regulatory Compliance for Voltus. As was mentioned, Voltus is a leading DR provider. We operate in all of the wholesale electric markets across the U.S. and Canada. Relevant to today, we facilitate C&I customers in PJM DR programs, including we currently have 7 C&I customers in the state of Maryland. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for? All right. Well, so at the risk of stoning the messenger, you heard my questions to staff about how this situation can go about. Do you have, since you're the regulatory person, isn't it really your responsibility to check what the rules of the road are before you guys start operating?
Yeah, so we operate in 30 U.S. states, and as was mentioned, a CSP license isn't required in any of the other states. It's usually a broker license when you're being a electric supplier broker, and this was just an administrative oversight. Like we mentioned, we registered with PJM to become a CSP. They didn't ask for a license at that time. We found out, I believe it was the very end of March, BGE just sent we're doing an audit where we're requesting your license. And it was at that time we realized that we did not have it, and we immediately reached out to the commission to make it right.
Okay, well, as you can understand, we have this concern about, now, on one hand, since you only deal with commercial customers, my perception is that they take care of themselves. But, it does strike me that it's a fairly serious situation to have somebody operating, offering services in this area without the particular license. I'm not really worried about the fee that gets paid to us. I'm more worried about the oversight by the technical staff to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And if you're sort of operating in the dark, so to speak, at least to us, that creates a lot of concern on my part. So.
I understand.
Okay, well, with that, I move we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to the provision of curtailment services that we issue a civil penalty to the company in the amount of $1,000 and direct the company to notify the commission within 30 days of any changes in the information which the commission relied on in granting the license. Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, items number 8 and number 9 are requests to transfer customers between Energo Power and Gas LLC and Sprague Operating Resources LLC.
Good morning again, Chair and Commissioners. Charles Herbert on behalf of staff. Items 8 and 9 are notifications of a customer assignment from Energo Power and Gas LLC, formerly known as Marathon Power LLC, trading as Marathon Energy, and Sprague Operating Resources LLC, doing business as Sprague Energy Services, wherein Energo's commercial and industrial natural gas customers will be assigned to Sprague. Energo and Sprague are both up to date on the required payments to the Commission and do not owe any outstanding assessments. Further, both companies are in good standing with the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation. The companies have also provided notice to the Commission and the affected customers in compliance with COMAR requirements. With respect to complaints, no complaints have been filed against Energo and 2 complaints have been filed against Sprague since 2018. Neither of the 2 complaints that were filed against Sprague are recent, with the most recent complaint having been filed on September 7th of 2021. Staff notes that Sprague is one of the most experienced suppliers in the Maryland retail gas supply market, having been issued its license on July 25th, 2001. With only 2 complaints on record with the Commission's Consumer Affairs Division in 23 years of operation, staff finds that Sprague has demonstrated an overall strong record of customer protection in the state. Given Sprague's consumer protection history, staff does not believe that the assigned customers from Energo will face adverse impacts from being transferred to Sprague. Therefore, staff sees no issues with the customer assignment. Accordingly, staff recommends that the Commission note the filing, and with that, we're available for any questions.
So, any questions? I think nobody's here from Sprague, right?
I believe someone is here
Oh,
from
okay.
Sprague.
Good morning, Todd Bohan for Sprague Operating Resources.
Oh, okay. So I think you're fine with their recommendation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I understand. So, okay. Any questions for Sprague? So, okay. With that, regarding item 8, I move we note the filing, and regarding item 9, I move that we note the filing. Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. And with that, the administrative meeting is adjourned.